Hello friends! Today I'm recording this video for you in a slightly unusual format because there's something important I want to share. I have some thoughts about the air war, the Russian-Ukrainian war, about our air attacks, the trends that are emerging, and also about the enemy's air attacks against our territory. If you've been following the news over the past day, you might have seen... Oh no, wait, that's not what I was supposed to say. First, I was supposed to urge you to donate to the current Ruzoris so that we can buy more kamikaze drones for our military to destroy Russian occupiers, their equipment, their drones, including Shahids. And as always, all the details are in the description of this video. So, chip in 2 hryvnias each, this is extremely important. Now, on to the main topic. You've probably noticed, if you follow the news, that right now in so-called Russia, well, in its European part, there is literally a collapse in civil aviation. As a result of some unknown good people launching drones into the so-called Russian Federation, they were forced to shut down their airports. And this is a factor that should not be underestimated. Russians are now standing in lines there, unable to fly out. Here we'll insert the video so you can see it in case you missed it.
Flights in Nizhny Novgorod have already been delayed for 20 hours. That's the situation here. Someone has already fallen asleep. Everyone, absolutely everyone, is delayed. And
this has a very serious impact on our enemy. It might seem like, well, drones flew in, airports were shut down, but this isn't really a strike on a military target. However, it's no less important than hitting military targets. Why? Because there's a psychological factor and there's an economic factor. The psychological factor is that Russians who are far removed from the war, who basically don't care about what's happening in Ukraine, are now experiencing the consequences of the war on their own territory. They experience discomfort, they live in those airports, lying around on the floor. They don't like it, and they know that the reason is the Russian-Ukrainian war. The second factor, and an even more important one, is the economic factor. When civil aviation doesn't operate, logistics come to a halt. This results in huge losses for both individuals and legal entities. And there's another important nuance. The Russian Federation is simply too large in its size. And in fact, without this kind of constant logistics to the European part, which is the most important part of so-called Russia from the point of view of the distribution of economic resources, without logistics, this quasi-state entity could simply fall apart. No, I'm not saying that if we just launch some drones, Russia will fall apart because of it. But consistent work like this will yield tangible results. If the Russian Federation doesn't have proper air connections, more and more regions will start to feel that they are somehow far and disconnected from Moscow. That's why such attacks need to continue. And considering that Ukraine will be producing even more long-range kamikaze drones, I think we can expect some particularly good news on this front. Now, regarding the enemy's attacks, it's clear that the trend for 2025 will be, and will continue to be, massive airstrikes on our rear areas, primarily using even non-strategic aviation, and not just ballistic missiles, but specifically Shahed-type drones. The Russians understand that they cannot defeat us on the battlefield. For them, it is extremely difficult. Yes, they are making advances. Yes, they are capturing some of our settlements, but the pace is extremely slow. That's why they are betting on delivering deep air strikes as often and as intensively as possible. You may have noticed that they have changed their tactics. Now they launch several hundred drones at a single city to make the strike more concentrated. And you may have also noticed that they have started attacking territorial recruitment centers. All of this is happening for a reason. The Russians are pursuing not only a military objective by striking military targets, but also psychological and economic goals with these attacks. Accordingly, the psychological goal is to make us lose hope, to make us think that everything is extremely bad, that we might suddenly not be able to withstand it, that we should already sign some kind of capitulation just to make it all end. This is the kind of calculation the Russians are making. And even when Ukrainians, particularly on Twitter, were recently writing about the terrorist air attacks by the Russian Federation, Russian bot farms would immediately swarm in and literally write, just surrender and all this will stop. In other words, their calculation is that you will lose hope. That's why this must not be done under any circumstance. Another goal they are pursuing is economic. Economically, their aim is to force as many Ukrainians as possible to leave Ukraine. This will undermine our economy. The economy is the lifeblood of war. Without a strong economy, Ukraine will not be able to hold out for long, to maintain its defense for long. Accordingly, the enemy will try to increase and further increase these air attacks, making them more and more intense. He will deliberately continue to strike residential buildings because he specifically wants to demoralize the civilian population. And here we have something to respond to the enemy with. I've already mentioned in several previous videos that interceptor drones against Shaheds are showing pretty good results. Right now, we're recording new shootdowns literally every night, specifically by those drones that you donated to, that you contributed your money for. And I want to point out that this project has only just begun. Mass production has only just started, and only the first deliveries of these drones to the units have begun. Even so, there are already pretty good results from issuing these UAVs to the units. We see enormous potential in this, and this is what we can use to counter Russian aerial terror. So once again, I urge you to chip in a couple of hryvnias for Russories so that we can buy both drones for the front and drones for air defense. But separately, I would like to use this video to address representatives of Ukrainian business. In order to buy up everything produced by just one manufacturer by the end of September, we need more than 300 million hryvnias. We can raise this money from individuals, but in that case, we would have to limit the supply of drones to the front. And that is absolutely unacceptable. We cannot leave our soldiers without support. We need more resources for this. We specifically need help from businesses. For our part, we guarantee complete transparency, right down to the use of every single drone. We will also show you videos of the drones in action. You will see that your support truly saves lives. And this is also an opportunity to protect your own business in Ukraine. So please get in touch with us, with our foundation. In the video description, you'll also find an email address you can write to. We would be absolutely delighted to collaborate. And you, dear friends, might ask, so where's the video? Show us, show us. Well, I've already shown video footage of Shahed interceptions using interceptor drones several times. But we've stopped doing that and don't plan to do it again anytime soon. There are videos, there are many of them, but right now it's not advisable to make them publicly available. We don't want our enemy to see what tactics we're using, what tools we're employing, what their features are, and so on. All of this would help them develop countermeasures. So everything in its own time. There will be plenty of videos in the public domain, but later, you will see how your support truly enables us to shoot down Shaheeds. You will see these beautiful shots. I guarantee you that, but only when it can really be done without harming our production and the tactics of using interceptor drones. So to sum up, this year and next, the enemy will try to attack even more intensively, primarily civilian targets. They will also try to strike at territorial recruitment centers to disrupt mobilization. Today they struck a territorial recruitment center in Kremenchuk. In recent days, they struck in the Poltava region as well, aiming to provoke a certain psychological reaction in you. The enemy will become even more ruthless, but we have the means to respond. And for this, your help is extremely important. And friends, finally, I have to say that thanks to you, our soldiers received another 450 new FPV drones over the past day. And the next day, and after that, they will receive even more. So I thank you for this extremely important support. Glory to the heroes. Support our military. Even 1 or 2 hryvnias from you truly save lives. Support the security and defense forces of Ukraine.